Hello, beloved soul seekers. Welcome, welcome to the You-est podcast. It's always a good sign when my cheeks are hurting before we start because our guest today is just a ball of wisdom and love and beauty. And we were chatting beforehand. Seriously, my cheeks are hurting. And so I'm excited for this conversation. I am just going to tell you that we're going to go to the deep end of the pool. So I hope that you got your seatbelts on, you're ready. And let me tell you about our beautiful, beautiful inside and outside guest today, Lena Franklin. I'm so honored to have her with us today. Offering the ancient practices of mindfulness and meditation, utilizing a fresh modern voice is the essence of Lena's work. As a mindfulness-based psychotherapist, international spiritual teacher, and speaker, Lena will teach you that to journey inward is your highest calling. Heck yes. Lena earned both her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology and Master's of Social at the University of Georgia. As a licensed clinical social worker, Lena integrates Eastern philosophy with Western neuroscience. Lena's holistic healing work is grounded in Buddhist psychology, mindfulness meditation, life force yoga, and insight yoga, in addition to psychodynamic foundations. Today, Lena has a mindfulness business based in Atlanta, Georgia, where she sees individual clients, provides mindfulness corporate trainings, teaches personal growth workshops, and guides meditation retreats around the globe and virtually. Lena is also the head of mindfulness for Wellzen, a mindfulness meditation app featuring practices and programs to enhance your health and happiness. Raised in a hybrid Buddhist Christian household, Lena was introduced to meditation as a young child. Today, this mindfulness foundation has grown into a deep passion to guide others on a journey towards inner peace, emotional balance, and a felt sense of wholeness. Lena has been featured in various media outlets, including the New York Times, Modern Luxury, and World Traveler magazines. You can visit her website to learn more about her practice and schedule of wellness trips, retreats, continuing education offerings, and so much more at lenafranklin.com. All of that will be in the show notes. But most importantly is you get to now meet Lena yourself. Lena, I'm so honored you're here. Welcome, my dear friend.
Thank you, Julie. My cheeks hurt too, which is the best way to start any interview and podcast. I'm so grateful to be here. This is, such a joy, such an honor. And I just am so grateful to have met another soul sister on this path. So thank you for the work you're putting into the world. It's radiant and much needed.
Thank you. Well, we'll do a little shout out, Lauren Taylor, who connected us. And I know we have our friends, Lauren, Adair, and others, and just so glad I right away, I was like, whoa. I mean, you radiate this like wisdom and calm and beauty. And, I think right now with all that's going on, the ability to find that center point inside, that calm, that spot of feeling okay no matter what's going on is way more important than 3 months ago was. And maybe I feel like there's so many questions I want to ask you, but I know you have such mastery around mindfulness, and maybe just talk a little bit about your journey with getting into mindfulness, and how can those listening, how can we stay calm when there's a lot of instability going on?
Yes. So I'll start with my journey, and then we'll go into how we can really embrace these practices in a tangible way that feels applicable and digestible for our everyday life. So, I really started in childhood. I was introduced to Buddhism and mindfulness meditation through my Buddhist Vietnamese mother. And it was a really interesting hybrid Buddhist Christian upbringing that was pretty unconventional, especially because I lived in a pretty Christian town in Virginia outside of DC. And so I would say there were seeds planted within me initially, but I didn't truly come into the practice until much later in my life. And as most of our awakenings happen, it was through trauma and through grief and through challenge that really brought me back to some of those spiritual teachings that my mom introduced me to. My mom actually passed during my first year in grad school. And so it was interesting, through my therapy and through my own inner guidance and the intuitive voice that was birthing within me, I was guided back to the meditation practices that she initially taught me. So I found that the self-led practice of meditation, of mindfulness, is even more powerful than my own therapy process. And I began a consistent practice and realized that that is one of the only things that we can control. We are so good as humans attempting to control everything outside of our lives, and control is such an illusion in so many ways, but that if we can devote and dedicate ourselves to cultivating that center point within our consciousness, within our body, that can be the most liberating practice we'll ever embrace, because, inevitably life is chaotic and the ebb and flow is traumatic at times. And I know so many of us are experiencing that now during this global uncertainty. But, even just like using your hands to bring your energy back into the center point, and you allow that body posture and the intention to come back into the central channel of the body. It's like, okay, this is the true refuge. This is the inner resource that exists within all of us. We're just not always taught how to cultivate it, how to find it. And we're so taught and conditioned to stay attached to external life and the 3D world around us that we're often distracted. But yeah, it was through grief, through challenge, through suffering. So
I want to, before we get in, because I know I brought it's so funny. I was listening to myself. I'm like, let's go right into how do we do it? And I'm actually so glad you went into your journey. And now, of course, I'm like, hold on, I want to stay with your journey and your lessons first. So I'm keeping note, because this is what happens. So many questions, so much richness. In terms of that grief, you kind of alluded to this, that there was a breaking open. There was something happening within you through your grief. I'm wondering what the lessons you got from the grief you went through. And, I feel like those listening were going through a collective grief, and there's also those who might have it right now in their lives individually. And just, you are really articulate, and I know you've got some beautiful lessons from it. What can you share about that process of grief and what you've learned from it, and maybe how you use that today?
Yes, thank you for inviting that question. It's so rich. And so whether we're talking about the grief of a loved one, so human death, or just grieving a different life that we yearned for in the past, or grieving a part of ourselves that's shedding and dying, we need to really understand that the life, death, rebirth process is an essential part of our human experience. And so through my grief, I was thrust into what I would call an existential crisis around, well, if life is so fleeting, if we can perish, we can die in an instant. So my mom passed of a sudden stroke. She was healthy, vital. She was 57 years old. I was super sudden and no warning sign. And so it was obviously highly traumatic. She was my primary attachment parent too, which, for me, was just, it rocked my entire world and my entire feeling of what existence was. So again, if life is so fleeting, it brings us into that question of, why are we here? What is the nature of our waking life, our existence here on this planet? And so what I found was, through my grief, I could really honor and see the preciousness of impermanence. Like, our life is being impermanent. Each breath is being impermanent. Each relationship is being impermanent. Everything in this manifest universe is being impermanent. And that, to me, gave me a sense of urgency to live more fully. Yeah. It's like that urgency, okay, yes, I could die tomorrow. I truly could. How do I want to live today? Even if it takes me diving into my deepest fears and places of discomfort, I would much rather have the courage to face those dark parts of myself in order to live in the light of my truth and live in the light of my soul than to live a life that I've been taught and conditioned that I should live that's not serving my higher self or my deeper self. So it's like that, to me, like one of the biggest things I learned was that sense of, urgency to honor my heart and honor my truth, no matter what fears were surfacing, no matter the judgments I would get from other people in my life. And that was a transformative, like pivotal experience for me.
Oh, that is, I need to take a breath. That is so beautiful and so powerful. And just this whole, what you said is, and I'm thinking for me, for everyone tuning in, really the question is, how do I want to live? How do I want to live today? How do I want to live in this moment? And the urgency of honoring your heart. Those are beautiful, beautiful aspects. I'm just thinking, like, I didn't know the story. I didn't realize it was so sudden with your mother. And I can only imagine. I mean, it's something, it's hard to comprehend because you can't ever get obviously her back in physical form. And just, it's amazing. It sounds like it's really informed so much of who you are today and what you do and stand for.
It absolutely. And I'd say she was my teacher in human form. She was a healer herself. She had a nail salon, but she, people came in to get their nails done, but then got a lot more when they would leave the door, exit after their appointment. And so she taught me a lot in her human form. She was the embodiment of compassion, very much Kuan Yin, compassionate energy, but in spirit form, uncomplicated by the human bias system and her own trauma, being exposed to the Vietnam War. She was actually able to guide me more purely as a spirit, and as, that pure energy, that pure unconditional love. And so her death was the catalyst of my awakening, which I see as all in divine timing and sequence. And that's kind of it's a hard thing to learn when you're yearning for the human connection so deeply. Yeah.
So we're going in a little bit of a different land, but I'm just feeling compelled to ask you this, Lena, because I feel like I always ask, by the way, everyone, I asked before, is there anything I can't ask? So I'm the disclaimer. I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm just allowing my intuition to guide it. I'm like, oh, we're going here. Yeah. You said that you connect with her in her pure energy form. And what came to me, the question is, I really think there are a lot of, I know this because I've gotten a lot of questions and comments from the beautiful listeners here wanting to know, how do I connect with loved ones that have passed on, that have crossed over? And I'm wondering if there's a practice or a way that you do connect with her. I know this is not, it's kind of off to the path, but I just can feel that there's so many of us have lost, we have lost loved ones. Is there some way how do you do that? How do you connect? How do you know when you're connecting? Do you mind sharing about that?
Sure. Yeah. I love where this is flowing to. So there's a few things. First of all, we just need to get comfortable with the unseen realms, or at least like set the intention to get more comfortable with the unseen realms, because we are so attached to what we can see and touch. So it's having the courage and the consistency to talk to that relative or beautiful being in your life who has passed on. So just like you would anyone, like if your grandmother or your mother, your father, your sister is hovering, over your left or right shoulder, what would you say to them, And so cultivating a relationship just through communication, whether that's in your mind's eye speaking or speaking out loud. I recommend speaking out loud because it helps you to really verbalize and communicate. And then in terms of really connecting with their messages and their support, I would recommend, first of all, grounding yourself. So getting your feet into Mother Earth, really, really grounding yourself in your body. So you want to ground yourself, and, whether you're seated on the ground or, you're in your home, so you can use your intention to ground yourself, use your intention to open the crown chakra, which is the 7th chakra. It's connection to the divine, connection to the spirit realm, universal wisdom. And I do this journaling exercise where I ground myself, I open my crown, I get centered into my body, my energetic body, my physical body. I take a pen and a piece of paper in my journal and I ask a question. and I ask the relative, so primarily for me, it's my mom, I ask her to speak through me, and then you just write whatever comes out without thinking, without questioning. It could be designs, it could be words that don't make sense, it could be images, but just trusting that this spirit's guidance will channel through you. So you're basically channeling their wisdom and energy. And to me, that's a tangible, effective, powerful way to connect with that spirit that you've been longing for.
When you're doing that, I love this. And I'm going to make sure to write this because you gave the steps so beautifully, like what to do, really that getting grounded, saying it out loud, taking out your journal. Can you feel a shift in energy at this point? I know you've probably been doing this a long time. Can you feel a difference in energy? Can you feel a difference in the vibration of the words? Like, is there something that shifts for you as you start writing and connecting? And the second piece is, have you had anything come through that's just been like, wow, that would not have come through me?
Yeah. Yes. So I feel it's the best way I can describe it. We're using words to describe,
Yes.
inner. We're doing the best we can by using words.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. Words don't always work. Exactly.
No, the languages can be limiting. But the best way I can describe it is that my words, my hand movements, they're not mine. It's like okay, so like a Ouija board.
Yeah.
It's you allow the energy to move, and it's like my body, my mind, it's not controlled by me in that moment. So it feels like almost like when you get chills down your spine, you can feel that little chill in your body. So yes, that's kind of how I experience it. And then what was your second question, Julie?
Yeah. So I'm curious. I had this image, and I don't know if I'm just, because this comes through. Has there ever been information or a connection with her where you might have been thinking one direction and she had wisdom that was like, no, go this way? Or I don't know. It just sort of, it felt like it really helped you in your life to maybe answer a question or change directions or have more confidence or more knowing.
Yeah, and oh gosh, there've been quite a few moments. One of them was when we were going to have a ceremony for her ashes here in the US, somewhere probably near our hometown, up in the DC area. And she was like, nope, I did this exercise, and I asked her to guide me because my family, had their own ideas of what should happen. And she clearly moved through me and said, bring me home, were the words that came out. So I had to really advocate to my family, who really initially had resistance around bringing her back to Vietnam, her ashes. And so like trekking her ashes all the way from, the US back to Vietnam to this remote island, Con Dao Island, which she wanted to be released on this mountain. It was like Elephant Mountain. And so she was very specific, and some of those signs like unfolded as we went along, but it was a big detour in honoring her life. And it was very, very powerful. And then the other major one was, her, this one really brings me chills because it's more recent. But I asked her to give me a sign because I was in the midst of a relationship, a marriage that was emotionally bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, was not in alignment with what I needed, with what my soul was yearning for. But he was the embodiment of my people-pleasing nature. It looked perfect on the outside. It made sense in terms of my family, in terms of my community at that time. But as I continued my awakening, I saw how much misalignment there was, and I saw how much I was denying myself what I needed and continuing to lie to myself in different ways. So I went to my mom in spirit form, and I said, show me a sign. Show me a sign. Allow this sign to be in my face so I can see that I'm supposed to leave this marriage. My soul knew. I just wanted her support. I was afraid. I was so constricted in fear. And the sign was my wedding ring totally broke. Like the diamond on the bottom, totally, she shattered the bottom of it. And
Get chills.
yeah. And diamonds, obviously, we know some of the hardest gem substances, right? And that was it, you know. And I knew what the direction I was moving, but it was just confirmation for me. And it was very much her, because it was her diamond. He had used my mom's diamond for the center stone. So yeah, she has spoken to me in miraculous and big ways, and continues to.
Mm.
She's grateful.
That is so, wow. I mean, talk about a sign in front of your face. I mean, that's like, I don't even know that diamonds break. Like
I've never heard that happen.
that must have taken a lot of energy on the other
Mhm.
side to do that, to make that. Well, and I think what you said is, you said it in there, your soul knew, but for so many of us, just having that support and getting it from the other side, from loved ones, like just to have that sign, have that confirmation, sounds like that was so helpful for you.
It was so, I mean, so powerful, so helpful. And it's just, it allows you to see that there's the nature of reality is so far beyond what we think it is. And there's so much support. We're held by our ancestors, we're held by our spirit guides, we're held by this unseen realm. And we can, with intention, with energy, cultivate a very sacred relationship with it. And it can help us make choices in our lives, to trust our intuition. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. Well, I'm connecting the dots. I know so much of your work around mindfulness. To be able to connect like that, you've got to be able to be still and be able to at least be present, and I think maybe one of the gifts of what's going on is a call to be still more, if you choose to do that. um, and I love what you shared. I think this is so applicable for anyone that's has loved ones that have passed on, just to connect and ask, like you said, journal, doodle. Like, I found that words don't always, I can't, it's not always words. I'm like, I don't have any words. It's an energy. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about one of the things I know that you are trained in, is it psychodynamics and psychotherapy, mindfulness-based psychotherapy? And I think that is so cool. And I just read when I was looking through your background and then reading your bio, I'm like, talk about that. Like, I don't know many psychotherapists that bring in mindfulness. Like, it makes sense. What a great blend. And what does that look like?
Yeah. So in practice, it really looks like a hybrid, traditional psychotherapy. So really falling on the healing capacity of the therapeutic relationship. So within that interpersonal, energetic, emotional dynamic, there's a tremendous amount of healing that can happen. But the mindfulness piece, the meditation piece, is that, as we're processing, I may see something or sense something, and hold space to guide the client into a practice. Mindful belly breathing, grounding, different pieces of breath work. But it becomes then like a portable practice for the client to have in their day-to-day life. So for me, it's been a way to practice psychotherapy that's incredibly empowering and less pathologizing than, diagnosing people and really being stuck and attached to different labels and diagnoses. So it's through the lens of Buddhist psychology and mindfulness in which I practice psychotherapy. And so that means, being present. Everything is about
Mm.
cultivating presence of our inner experience and beginning to truly see and feel that our thoughts and emotions are simply experiences in our consciousness that we don't need to react to, that we're simply there to witness, to feel through, to experience, but they don't need to dictate our actions, our choices. We don't even have to give them power through our attention. And that is massively liberating for people, to see like, wow, I'm having these recurring thoughts, but I know that through my meditation practice, I see that they're not based in any reality. Maybe they're based in my past trauma. Maybe they're based in what society has taught me, whatever it is. So it's like expanding the sacred container to allow and accept all things, feelings and thoughts, and then cultivating that self-determination and ability to self-actualize our lives through conscious awareness and conscious choice. So it's psychotherapy, but with a big experiential practice focus.
Well, I love it. And I know we talked about this earlier about actually doing a meditation together at some point here. Before we do that, this is the question I hear from others. I've heard many times, and I think slowing down, frankly, being around a lot of family, like I know I'm in a full house today. There are 5 of us. Usually there might just be myself and I can hear kids over here. I could hear, a lot going on. And I think it can be a challenge to not take what you're seeing and feeling and react to it. I mean, to me, that's master level, to be able to observe it. And just curious if maybe you have any just beginners, like tips, strategies, how, like, especially now for those in home huddle,
Yes.
what can we do to see it, but not take it on?
Totally. I love this question. So there's a very simple but impactful portable mindfulness practice I want to offer. And it's a technique you can use throughout the day, whether you're triggered by your child, your spouse, the iPhone pinging, whatever. And it's called the 3 A's. And it's easy to remember. So the first is to acknowledge the uncomfortable emotion or thought. So it could be irritation, it could be the thought of I'm not good enough, whatever it is. You acknowledge the feeling or the thought that's uncomfortable. The second is to just breathe into the body and to accept. You put your hands over your heart. So a lot of times I'm like, my darling, I accept that this is a part of my humanness. May I accept that this is a part of my humanness. So it's that deep and loving acceptance of our imperfection. And I like to try to use very loving language to myself. So I use like darling, beloved. It can feel a little awkward at first, but the more you use it, it's like, it just feels so nurturing. So you acknowledge, you accept, this is a part of my humanness. And then the third is alternative action. So if your default mode is to bark back at your spouse or slam the door, whatever it is, you take an alternative action, which is something that you pull from your toolbox. Maybe you draw your attention to the soles of the feet. Maybe you go into the bathroom and take 5 deep breaths. But you get to choose. This is where you're self-led in your own healing. Choose that alternative action to help shift your pattern and create a new habit. So acknowledge, accept, alternative action. 3 A's.
So great. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard that one like that. That's perfect. I love that. The 3 A's. Yeah. I think it's, the acknowledging it, right? Like that piece versus trying to, like, I don't want to feel this. I mean, that's usually my thing is I don't want to feel this. I don't want to start a negative vibration, but it's there. So if you bypass it, it's still there. And then you're bypassing it and it's still there. I know I struggled with, eating issues because I didn't want to acknowledge anything like that.
Yeah.
So I love that. And then the acceptance, or I love that, may accept what's happening right now, and the alternative action. That's so great. I love how simple that is too. Thank you.
I did it right before we started because my partner was in here. I was like, get up. Like, I could jump on with Julie, and I could feel that irritation. And so I lovingly ushered him out, but I could feel the 3 A's moving through. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
None of us are exempt from the triggers.
Yeah. That's I think that's important to say, Lena, like, we don't arrive. There's not, I think this is, and as I would imagine anyone who's attracted here is a lifelong learner. I just feel like that's our community, right? Lifelong learners, we're continuously evolving. And I don't know, I'm assuming you probably have a similar feeling. Like there is no arriving. Like I sometimes think, okay, finally, I'm going to, like, it's just going to be peace, calm, love, and joy at all times. And I don't think that happens in humanity all the time. I don't think so.
No, I'm with you, Julie. Thank you for bringing that up because we need to understand this is a lifelong journey, and we're always awakening beings. We're not awakened beings. And I like to say a lot of these practices are aspirational practices. We're aspiring. A lot of my Buddhist teachers will use the word aspirational. So
Mm,
can remember that's what we're aspiring to do, but we're not going to be perfect at it. So we need self-compassion as well.
yeah. There's no graduating. I think that's the thing. I'm realizing we're set up in this system where we go through school and we graduate to the next thing. And this is where it can be the trap, is where we think, or I've had this at least, where I'm like, oh, yay, when do I get to like mastery level? It's like, oh, this moment is mastery level. Oh, this moment. And you know what? There is no such thing. It's just
Right.
there. There is no.
I totally agree. We're conditioned to believe that if we put in enough work, we're gonna, that chapter's done and we've mastered that lesson and that lesson, and it's just false.
It's not the way
Yeah.
it is. So for those of you who are like, okay, like there can be this, I think I'm going to learn this, I'm going to do it. Like if you apply that to what we're talking about, start from a place of just, maybe the word shoshin, like childlike,
Mhm.
just that childlike wondering, curiosity. The one word my husband uses, I'm like, where did you get that from? And I love it. It's so great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Curiosity. All right. Well, I was thinking, to lead us in an actual meditation would be so beautiful. And you're so skilled at this. And my feeling is just to, there's a collective that's tuning in. I'll let you tune into what's needed. I always say for the highest good of everyone listening, and we'll let you take that away and just guide us. And so if you're not driving if you're listening right now, although you might be. If you are, don't do this. Either do it later, don't close your eyes, or get a moment when you can be still, come back. But yeah.
Right. Do it like the many of the Zen Buddhists meditate with the eyes open, so you can use that technique.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, use the eyes open. Exactly.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you, Julie, for this opportunity. For those of you tuning in, just begin to notice, just a simple noticing of your body's presence in your space, wherever you are, and begin to bring your attention into the breath. And if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and allow the eyes to close. And if not, you can just keep them downcast at the floor or your lap. If you're driving, keep them open. And so we're just arriving. The first essence, the first piece of our mindfulness practice is arriving in this body. Mindfulness is not about striving. It's not about being somewhere other than where we are, emotionally, mentally, energetically. So this first piece of your meditation is about just a light recognition of how you are. So as you breathe into the body, you begin to feel that ebb and flow of your breath. We ask ourselves, how am I? Breathing that question of self-inquiry into the center of the belly, the hara, the seat of your intuition. How am I? And then you begin to open up into loving awareness, noticing what arises without judging, without assessing, without labeling feelings and thoughts as good or bad. We become the compassionate, loving observer of the inner experience. So you may feel joy, you may feel irritation, you may feel anger, you may feel ease, you may feel peace, you may feel compassion, stress. When we check in with ourselves, we lovingly invite all to be present without censoring, So as you welcome all that is within your experience, just notice, stress, anxiety. I see you, lethargy. I feel you, joy. Continue to breathe deeply, slowly, and fully into the belly. And now we shift from mindfulness into grounding. Your ability to ground yourself in this moment, in the center of your being. You become this still point in a turning world, in a world that feels uncertain or chaotic. In this moment, in your meditation, you create agency, personal power, and self-determination in your practice. As you breathe into the base of the spine, feel the breath swirling and shining around the tailbone. Your energy flows where your attention goes. So you can use your power to direct and sustain your attention in the areas of the body that need your care most. So here we work with the first energy center of the body, the root at the base of the spine. And as you breathe into the base of the spine, imagine a root system growing from the base of the spine down through the building you're in, down through the crust of Mother Earth. And the root system grows and expands, maybe horizontally now and vertically, down, down. Down all the way to the hot magma center of Mother Earth. And first we thank her for sustaining us, for nurturing us. And as you inhale, you imagine this beautiful ruby red light, this grounded electromagnetic energy come up through the root system, all the way up every root, up into the base of your spine as it moves through the crust of earth, through the floor. And you feel that ruby red light shimmering and shining around the base of your spine. Maybe you feel a vibration, a pulsating. You are grounding yourself, rooting yourself in the strength of your being. Stay with this ruby red light. Maybe you feel that tingling, that low thump of Mother Earth's energy. We are not separate from her. She is our great mother. So using your ability to be mindful, we shine our awareness on the tailbone, on this lower part of the body. We know we can always return here whenever we need to come back home to center. We're cultivating inner resources for ourselves, for our families, for humanity. We weave in a mantra. As you inhale to the crown of the head, repeat to yourself two of the most powerful words. I am. As you exhale into the base of your spine, repeat to yourself, grounded, present. Inhaling to the crown, I am. Exhaling down into the base of the spine, grounded, present. I am to the crown. Exhale into the base of the spine, grounded, present, and ready for what life brings. You are that still point in a turning world, tethered between earth and sky, nurtured by this magnificent earth. Come back into that mindful belly breathing now. Riding those waves of your breath. Back home to who you are inside, beneath all of those thoughts and those worries, beneath the stresses, beneath the self-doubt and fear. We come home to this inner refuge of our truth, our essence, the core of who we are. We can touch this divinity in our meditation practice. We can remember here that with each breath we can begin again, we can begin anew. No effort needed. Presence is the greatest gift we can give ourselves, the beings in our life, and the world. Just noticing how you feel in this moment, light touch of recognition. How am I? No expectations. And on the next inhale, coming back into your space, allowing the eyelids to flutter open. Maybe bringing hands in prayer at heart center. Just taking a little bow to yourself. So may we continue to honor ourselves in this life through the path of mindfulness and the path of living in our truth with courage and intention.
Ooh, wow. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I forgot. I was like, where am I? What are we doing?
I know.
Podcast going? What's happening?
It's interesting, then re-engaging.
Yeah, that was so, I just loved so much about that, especially the focus on like, how am I feeling? Where am I now? And then connecting, grounding. To me, like, that's overlooked often for myself too. Grounding, going into life, going into the day without connecting to Mother Earth, and then bringing that up. I love that I am powerful and grounded. Love that. That whole beautiful. Thank you. Oh my gosh, Lena, that is gorgeous.
It's a joy. My favorite thing, meditating with other amazing beings. Thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Well, ooh, I'm a little like, okay, now my brain, I'm so calm and present. I'm like, I think I'm just gonna put this out before we wrap. Like, is there anything your heart is feeling called to share? Is there anything we didn't talk about or discuss that is feeling like it's there for you that you want to share about you or about your work or about that experience? Like, the floor is yours, my darling.
What I'm feeling, I want to share, feel called to share, is just an invitation for people to ask how they can live differently. So how can you live differently that's more in alignment with what your deeper self, your soul needs? And we're being called to shed those old paradigms right now. And we're being called to awaken capacities within us that have been dormant. And that takes work, it takes courage, it takes the ability to embrace change. But I just want to encourage people, ask yourself, what do you need and how can you live differently? And then how can you take action to perpetuate and like manifest that life that's waiting to move through you? I just, especially during this time, it feels like such a prominent message for us to be sitting with.
Yeah. Yeah, you really nailed it with the whole, that's beautiful. How how might you live differently?
Mhm.
Taking this time. I love that. It's a great, it always, there's a quote about the question shifts the reality the minute you ask it. You know, we live in that participatory universe where when you ask it, the moment you ask it, it's already shifting. So I love that. I felt that in my
Mm,
being, in my heart.
yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I so much goodness here. I just keep seeing these like gems of now I'm seeing the ruby because you were talking about that, but like so many gems of goodness. Lena, you are just, thank you for being such a powerful warrior of light. You really are. And love what you're doing. I love what you're creating. I love what you're birthing and bringing into the world. It is just, I really, really honor you because we need this.
Thank you. So much deep appreciation and love for you, Julie. And it's the greatest honor doing this work. So thank you for such an amazing platform to share these wisdom teachings.